reached what felt like his bursting point, he took Huff and a few others to the edge of the Groom Mountains to see the flights for themselves. A total of 5 witnesses on 2 consecutive weeks managed to dodge security patrols long enough to see the strange...
Hey you and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this here video we're gonna take a look, have a go, at the man behind the biggest military computer hack of all time. His name is Gary McKinnon, and let's just say he's on the US government's naughty list. What's more, he found evidence of UFO technology, anti-gravity technology, all of the stuff we're not really supposed to have. And this is all being suppressed by the US government. Or so he says. Let's take a look into the case of UFO hacker Gary McKinnon, what he found, and where his story is to date. Gary McKinnon, born in Glasgow, Scotland, was 35 years old when he hacked into US military and NASA computers between February 2001 and March 2002. He did this from his girlfriend's house in London, using the name Solo. You see, he did this shortly before 9/11, when things were a bit more relaxed, I guess you could say. Either way, security I don't think at that time was as stringent as it should have been. After 9/11, a message started appearing on some US government computers that said, US foreign policy is akin to government-sponsored terrorism these days. It was not a mistake that there was a huge security stand down on September 11th last year. I am Solo. I will continue to disrupt at the highest levels. He was scanning thousands of US government computers and finding flaws which, well, in one way he did them a favor by finding these flaws and letting them know. And I hope these flaws have been, fixed a little bit.
Yeah, it was more like going fishing, really, because I knew they used Windows. Windows is just ubiquitous amongst the military, as it is over here as well these days. And I knew Windows was it's a very weak operating system. It's not what the military should use. Or you can lock it down, to be fair. All the tools for locking it down are in there, but it's a laborious job. So all I did was I wrote a script in a scripting language called Perl, Program Extracting and Reporting Language. And this script just scanned every IP on a subnet, 5 or 512 or however many, and tested the administrator password, which is the count on the local machine, which has full control of the local machine, to see if it was either blank or just password. I didn't even run like a big dictionary attack, just check for those 2 states. So typically, say you scanned 50,000 machines, 5,000 of those might have blank passwords, and 500 of those, 5,000 of those might talk to you. So you could get what was called inter-process communication. And 500 of those will have blank passwords, so you could then log on and have a look on the network.
He broke into almost 100 PCs in the Army, Navy, Air Force, NASA, and the Department of Defense. He was copying files, passwords, and he deleted critical files from their systems, which shut down the United States Army's network in Washington, D.C., which was about 2,000 computers, for 24 hours. After doing this, he would simply post for them to see, "Your security is crap," which I guess it was. He apparently disrupted missile commands and weapon systems and all of that security stuff. And all of these hacks, all of this disruption and mayhem he was causing, he was doing it, this is 2001, 2002, he was using dial-up internet. Remember that? Yeah. Now, for someone who was so good at hacking into what you would think would be, kind of difficult, US government security stuff, although evidently not, he wasn't so good at hiding his footsteps, digital footsteps. And honestly, they found him pretty quickly. The United States then sent the UK's high-tech crime unit to arrest him. It turned out that at the time he was unemployed, and so was pretty bored, and more or less did it for the crack. He was, in his words, indulging in his obsession with UFOs.
When I was about 12 or 13, pretty sure I was under 14 anyway. I saw my first and last actual sighting of an unidentified flying object, light in the sky that I couldn't explain. And I was looking from an upstairs window, and this light went across from almost vertical to the horizon in about, 3 to 5 seconds. It was a pretty orangey red, but it was moving in Brownian motion in this arc, so it wasn't a clean arc.
The US offered him a plea bargain. Do a few years in prison and, you'll be fine, we'll forget about it. He, however, wasn't too keen on that, and so he threatened to release all of the information he uncovered. The US called his bluff, essentially, and tried to extradite him to the United States. The case went on for a few years, kind of back and forth. We'll actually get into that in a bit. First of all, let's look into what he found, and it was supposedly alien technology. Whoa. One of the things he found was an Excel spreadsheet. It was titled Non-Terrestrial Officers. It supposedly kept the names and ranks of US personnel who weren't found anywhere else. It also had the names of ships he couldn't find anywhere else. Now, he said it wasn't like a list of alien soldiers the government was working with. It was a list of ships that weren't Earth-based.
It was an Excel spreadsheet, and there was a non-terrestrial officers list. And I can't remember the file name of the spreadsheet, but the heading on the column was non-terrestrial officers. And I looked it up at the time, and it was nowhere, absolutely nowhere, in that exact phrase, the quotation marks in the Google search. You search for it now, all you find is references to you finding it. But obviously it wasn't aliens, it wasn't, little green men. I took it to just mean it must be evidence of an off-Earth fleet. If you can have non-terrestrial officers, you must have spaceships that are based in maybe in geostationary orbits, who knows.
The reason he was actually caught was that he was downloading a photo from NASA's Johnson Space Center, which he believed showed a UFO. He said there was a NASA photographic expert who said there was Building 8 at the Johnson Space Center where they regularly airbrushed out alien spaceships from high-resolution satellite images. He logged in and accessed this department, and there he found huge high-resolution images and filtered and unfiltered versions of alien spacecraft. They would have a picture of Earth from space with an alien in it, airbrush it out, and now release it to the public. His dial-up 56K connection was a little slow to load the images. He then dialed down the resolution and was able to see a silver cigar-shaped craft.
And it got about 2/3 of the way down, and there was, I assume it was the Earth. I can't believe if it was colour or monochrome. But clouds, and then this perfectly smooth shell of a craft that got to just underneath its body. And there were no rivets, no seams. There was no sign of sort of working on this thing. It was weirdly smooth. But it did have these, like the golf ball domes, the geodesic domes for like radio installations.
He said for sure it didn't look man-made. Though then again, it probably looked like a potato with the resolution he was using. And again, 56K is it's pretty small, so I don't know how he could tell it didn't look man-made when it probably just looked like squares. But yeah, while he was doing this, someone at NASA figured out he was logged in and cut him off, and he was kicked out. He also claimed that the US government was hiding alien anti-gravity technology, which links into what Bob Lazar claims he worked on while at the S4 site not far from Area 51.
That alone is something amazing. Look, that can change everything we know today. Just having a machine to produce artificial gravity. Because look at what that does. We know gravity, space, and time are all tied together. There are your shields, like on Star Trek, that deflect micrometeorites. There is your protection from radiation without heavy shielding. There is something that, with an intense enough focused field, you can actually bend space. And there is something that can actually alter the flow of time. I mean, that's the missing piece of pie. To set it up for you, again, there's in the craft itself, there are 3 long pipes. I'd say, I don't know about, what's that, 3-4 feet in diameter, maybe 5 feet long. Anyway, they dangle, the 3 of them, at the bottom of the craft. These produce gravitational waves, and they can focus them to a point or spread them apart.
You see, they don't keep all the good stuff at Area 51. they keep it at S4.
They're digging in the wrong place.
Bob Lazar claimed that as a scientist there, they had 9 alien spacecraft from the binary star system Zeta Reticuli. They were hoping to reverse engineer. He announced this in 1989 and was also the first person to make the public aware of Area 51. This is a video he took capturing test flights of these UFOs.
This home videotape was recorded during one of the trips to the Groom Mountains.
Okay, good luck.
No, what? Did you see that move it did?
No, I didn't.
It was like
kept
doing boom. Wow, how bright it's getting.
Look at it now.
Getting bright.
Not bright enough for me to get the son of a bitch.
Here, hold on, right here.
Are you there? No.
It is bright right now.
Admittedly, the tape proves very little by itself because with the distance and darkness, there are no reference points other than the alleged flying disc. But Lazar's information about the time and location of the test flights proved correct, not once, but twice. That, according to our off-camera interview.
And even more recently, the Pentagon admitted they were investigating reports of unidentified flying objects. I think this might be the one time I wear the tinfoil hat unironically. A Department of Defense spokesman said a secret government initiative called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program did pursue research and investigation into unidentified aerial phenomena. While that program was shut down in 2012, the department still investigates claimed sightings of alien aircraft. And this is a pretty big deal for the US government to come out and say, yeah, there are unidentified flying objects, spacecraft out there, you know, whirling about and stuff, who God knows what they're up to. A lot of these aren't like secret new fighter jets, weather balloons, whatever. We honestly have no idea what a lot of them are. This is a video they released showing an encounter.
Dude, that is a fucking drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like... Look at that thing. It's rotating.
A spokesman said unidentified aircraft have entered military-designated airspace as often as multiple times per month, and they investigate each and every report. In some cases, pilots claim to observe small spherical objects flying in formation. Others say they've seen white, tic-tac-shaped vehicles. Aside from drones, all engines rely on burning fuel to generate power, but these vehicles had no air intake, no wind, and no exhaust. It's very mysterious, and they still seem to exceed our aircraft in speed, the spokesman said, calling it a truly radical technology. The US Navy is drafting new guidelines for pilots and other personnel to report encounters with unidentified aircraft. As previously, pilots were concerned that reporting unidentified flying craft would adversely affect their careers, and tended to not speak up when they saw something. Shit is getting pretty real. Thankfully I had this the entire time. So it seems that perhaps some of these claims, Gary McKinnon's, Bob Lazar's, even the Disclosure Project, which seeks to essentially bring to the public information of allegedly classified secret UFO information, maybe they're right. In 2002, Gary McKinnon was indicted by a federal grand jury in the Eastern District of Virginia, and essentially could have ended up going to prison for 70 years in the United States. The extradition request went back and forth for a number of years, until in 2012, then Home Secretary Theresa May blocked his extradition, saying Mr. McKinnon is accused of serious crimes. But there is also no doubt that he is seriously ill. He has Asperger's syndrome, and suffers from depressive illness. Mr. McKinnon's extradition would give rise to such a high risk of him ending his life that a decision to extradite would be incompatible with Mr. McKinnon's human rights.
I have therefore withdrawn the extradition order against Mr. McKinnon. It will now be for the Director of Public Prosecutions to decide whether Mr. McKinnon has a case to answer in a UK court.
So normally I'd be pretty skeptical of these claims, like the claims of Gary McKinnon, who, by the way, said that when he was doing his hacking, he was smoking like a lot of weed at the time, so who knows what he's seen. He doesn't actually have any proof of these images he's seen and the Excel spreadsheet telling us about alien spacecraft that the government has and whatever. I would have taken those claims, and even Bob Lazar's, although he seems kind of like a pretty normal dude, like not one of those crazies like me wearing a tinfoil hat, I would have taken his claims with a pinch of salt. But since the US government, who would normally deny all this, came out and said, yes, there is 100% things flying around, and we're just like, when the government doesn't know what they are, and nobody knows what they are, then it's scary. I mean, they say they don't know what they are. But when they show footage to the public of what is believed to be alien spacecraft, and they draft new guidelines for soldiers and pilots and whatever on how to report these, they're taking it very, very seriously. My goodness. Who really knows what's out there? It's exciting. Thank you so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts on all of this down below, please. I think it's really interesting, whether you believe it or not. I think it's absolutely fascinating. And yeah, I will see you as always real soon in the next video. Thanks again for watching. Take care of yourselves. Mike it.